Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today we're going to be going over the 3 R's, which are reading, arithmetic, and robots. My name is Tara, and I'm an education coordinator here at Ozobot.
And I'm Teresa, an education and curriculum specialist here.
So the first thing that we want to do is just kind of have everyone introduce themselves. So if you'll see the little side panel that you have for the webinar, there should be a little section that says questions, and you can type in a question there and submit it. So if everyone just wants to type in what grades they teach and then their job title, and I'll just give everyone a minute to go ahead and submit that. That's just so we know everyone who's attending what your grade levels are and where you guys are from and what you guys are doing in the classrooms. And it also helps us know that you guys can hear and see us okay, that you guys. And then we're going to have a couple of polls coming up here in just a second too. So if everyone wants to make sure they're tuning in and looking at the webinar, we're going to bring up a few polls just to get some more we're going to ask you a couple questions that would be helpful for us when we're creating new lessons for the future. Okay, so looks like everyone's submitting their grade levels right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start the polls. Before I do that though, now that you're all familiar with the question section, during our presentation, some people like to ask us questions, but it's really hard for us to see those and answer them as we're presenting. So if everyone can hold their questions to the very end, and then at that time, we'll let you know the presentation's over and to go ahead and go back to that little question section, type in anything you want. Basically, if you have a question about Ozobot, if you have a question about the webinar, and we'll read it out loud and answer it for everybody so that everyone can get the answer. All right, so the first poll that I want to pull up for everyone is, are you already using Ozobot in the classroom? And I've been using them for 1+ years. I have been using them for less than 1 year. I just received Ozobots and I'm looking to use them this year. I do not currently have them, but I'm looking to purchase. And my colleagues have Ozobots that I have access to. So if everyone wants to go ahead and put in their answer, I think everyone's pretty much voted, so I'm going to show the results. Okay, so about 55% of you have been using them, 20% has been using them for less than a year, 20% are looking to use them this year, and 5% do not have them currently. So that's fine. We have something in this webinar for all of you, for those of you who have been using it, and for those of you who are looking into it and just want some ideas of how you can use it when you do get it. Okay, the next question that we have is, which type of lessons would benefit you most when using Ozobot? And I believe this is multiple choice, so you can pick as many answers that fit. So we have standalone lessons on various subjects, short activities that I can use during, before, after class, complete courses consisting of multiple lessons, complete curriculum covering multiple subjects for the year, and self-guided lessons I can give to students to complete. Now, when we say complete curriculum, pick that only if you would really use an entire curriculum or course throughout the year. I know a lot of people say that they like it, but there really isn't room for it in their lessons for the year. So only pick that if you would actually be using that entire curriculum. And I'll just go ahead and give everyone a little bit more time to put in their answers. Okay, close it and share the results. 85% would like the standalone lessons, 75% short activities that you can use, 45% complete courses, 25% complete curriculum, and 65% self-guided lessons that you can give to students to complete. All right, so the next question would be, how much time do you have to prepare a lesson? And you can pick as many of these as you would like. We have single page, print and teach, that takes minutes. In-depth lessons requiring an hour of prep, courses that you plan the same week, courses that you plan 1 to 4 months ahead of time, or courses or curriculum that require prep prior to the school year. Okay, go ahead and close the poll now and show the results. 67% want the single page print and teach, 52% in-depth lessons, 57% courses you plan the same week, 19% courses you plan a couple months ahead of time, and then 5% courses or curriculum that require prep prior to school year. All right, so we have one last question for everyone.
And this is your homework.
If we developed more lessons, which subjects would be most helpful to your classroom situation? So we have computer science, science, math, art, and language arts. And again, you can pick as many as apply to you. Okay, go ahead and close the poll. And it looks like 89% computer science, 79% science, 74% math, 37 art, and 58 language arts. Perfect. I know Teresa is going to find these very helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, if everyone or anyone has a question, just save those to the very end of the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and take myself off the webcam. So I'm going to kind of show you around our website. We updated it a little bit recently, and there are some really cool materials and resources that we have available for you, especially for those of you who don't have Ozobots yet and are looking to purchase them. I'll kind of guide you through the website a little bit. So this is our main page of the website. If I come to the top of the page, you'll see this educator section or button. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it will take us into our STEM education page. And you'll see we have a few options up here at the top. Webinars and PD is where you'll find all of the past recorded webinars. We post them up there, and there are various topics that you can choose from, so you can kind of scroll through those and see if there's another webinar that you like or that you'd like to watch. Right here we have our lessons button. So if I click on this, it's going to take us to our portal where all of our lessons currently live. We have over 100 lessons, and they're growing constantly. It's a nice mix of lessons that we've created in-house and then teacher-generated content as well. If you're just starting out, you definitely want to start with these color code basic trainings, OzoBlockly basic training. And when you click into these, you'll see that there are multiple lessons that you'll want to work through. Here is our search feature in our lesson library. This is really important if you already know the basic training and want to search for specific lessons, such as those math, language, art lessons. So you can click on the search button right here, and you can filter through the lessons by grade level, subjects or topics, robot, lesson types, etc. So it's a really nice tool to have to come in here and choose what grade levels you're working with and the specific subject you want to teach, and all of those lessons will pop up once you hit the search button. I'm going to come back up to the top. You'll see right here. So I already went over webinars and PD and the lesson section. Here's our quick start section for those of you looking to get started with the Ozobot this year. And this has some really helpful information on getting started depending on what bot you're using. So you'll click on Evo if you're using Evo, Bit if you're using Bit. And this is going to walk you through the classroom kits that we have. And if you'll scroll down, we have some really helpful tutorials. These are brand new. I think we just posted these actually. And there's one on getting to know your bot, one on the color codes, and one on using OzoBlockly. I'm not going to go into those today. We do have other webinars that go more in depth on using OzoBlockly and color codes. But if you just want a quick tutorial, this is a great place to go to find those. And again, you can scroll down and teach your students and find basic training depending on grade level here, and then student handouts. So we have the color code tip sheets, the color code charts, student certificates, just some helpful handouts that you'll find will make your life a little bit easier when working with the students in Ozobot. And we're going to roll down to other resources. This is where you'll find all of the different resources that we have available for you, including calibration tips, bot basics. You'll see the color code charts and color code tips are also located here as well. And these are for students, so you can print these, give them to the students while they're working with the Ozobots. For example, here, the color code chart, you can print these and it just gives you examples of what each of the codes mean. And you can even scroll down here and there are descriptions of the color codes as well. So go ahead and exit out of that and come back to other resources. And these are resources for you just as the teacher. You wouldn't be handing these out to the students, but these will help you teach Ozobot. We have the Ozobot Educator's Guide, the Curriculum Planner, which this hasn't been on the website yet, so this is brand new to the website as well. This will walk you through what to do getting started using the Ozobot, and then recommendations depending on your grade level. So these are recommended lessons for K to 1, and if I scroll down, I'll find recommended lessons for 2, 3, and etc. So everyone can kind of take a look at that. And again, this is brand new to our website. Within, I think, just a few days ago, we released these. So if you have had Ozobot, which a lot of you have, come over here and you can download some of these new resources. Okay, and the last place that I want everyone to go to, if you see at the top here, it says Ozo-Blog. Go ahead and click on that. We're actually going to be working off of one of our blog posts, which is the 3 R's right here. I am going to send the direct link to everyone right now through the chat. So if you just want to click on that, we'll take you directly to this blog post. Otherwise, if you're already on the website, you can come over here and click at Ozoblog and then the Ozobot 3 R's. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Teresa now. And let me switch over permission for her to share her screen. Let me just take a second.
Okay, how's it look?
Perfect, I can see you.
Yay, okay, great. So we're gonna work down this list, and while we do that, we're also gonna show you some of these lessons in action. So we are discussing how you can bring Ozobot into a math lesson and into a language or story-based class, writing, reading, arithmetic. So the first lesson on the list is one that's great for all grades, and it uses OzoBlockly. If you want to see a storytelling lesson that we demoed, you can check out our webinar on lessons in STEAM. So you look that up, and we go through a color code version of a very fun fairy tale lesson. It's actually a Disney fairy tale lesson, I guess. So in this lesson, your students will have to read. The teacher who wrote this lesson promotes like finding like a rare fairy tale. So students have to really think about how to figure out the beginning, middle, and end, the plot, any suspense, and put that into their story instead of something everyone knows. But I did something that everyone knows, which is the 3 Little Pigs, and I'm going to show you my rendition. So put on my webcam, and then I think I'll shut off my screen so it's nice and big. Okay, and I turn my computer. So, okay. So hopefully there's not too much light pollution there. All right, so this is the 3 Little Pigs, and this is the big bad wolf, and I'll start telling you the story. So this is how a student might present what they've made, and this was made with OzoBlockly and the line navigation code. So the wolf is on his way to find the 3 little pigs and to, sorry, I need to draw that better, and to knock down their homes so he can eat them. So he comes upon the first house. Sorry. There we go. He comes upon the first house and he huffs and he puffs and he easily knocks it down. All right, and then he huffs and puffs up to the second house and easily knocks that down. Oh my gosh. And so the little bots will run away. And then the last house, which is just a really big pink Christmas house. Oh my gosh. I wasn't expecting the drama. Okay. But he did
Well, it looks like he got through to all the houses.
He got through all the houses.
So it was a spin on the classic fairy tale we all know.
Sad, and the pigs were lost. Okay. So that's how that lesson would go. So go ahead and share the screen again. Okay. The next one is actually based on Homer's Odyssey. So you will see it's actually grades 9 through 12. And in this story, I really like this lesson because students will use color codes to kind of tell one specific moment in a story from a main character's point of view, but then they're asked to tell the same situation from another character's point of view, which someone who might see the situation very differently. So maybe in your student's class, it could be like a king who's trying to take care of his kingdom, and he sees himself as being very helpful and being really wonderful to his people, whereas like maybe the peasants are actually quite, they see him as being like authoritarian and quite scary. So that's how students can start thinking about seeing a story from a different angle. So it's actually just like a really cool take on how to use robots into that story, because you're going to be using color codes to enact that. And then we'll move on down to, okay, and then this is actually a teacher's submission from a 10th grade class where the students made a murder mystery. And then I'll let you watch the video on your own because I think it might lag too much if I try to play it through here. But you can definitely watch that in your own time and see these students read out the murder mystery. So they created a map with color codes of a staging of where a murder might take place and like the victim and whatever, and then putting the clues together. So that's something that might inspire you for your classroom. And you can also, I think it's this link, let's see. That's right. So if you click on Murder Mystery Stories, this was actually one of our creators of the month. So you can click through and see more about this lesson if you would like to explore something like that. So it's not a lesson in our library, but you can find it through the blog. Okay, so I'll close that. All right. Now, Tara is going to help me show off this one. This is a lesson in our library that we'll be doing different kinds of measurements. So instead of just typical, your ruler, what is another way to measure things, and what does measurement even mean? So are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, I think you guys should be able to see it.
I'll stop sharing. Okay, we see it. Okay,
so this is my football stadium. And we're going to use Ozobot to help measure the length of the football stadium. And you'll kind of see here that I have my Ozobot, and we're going to take this little paper and I rolled it up into like a circle. And this line is going to count as 1 Ozo yard for us. So every time it rolls around on there, I'll have gained 1 Ozo yard. So I'm going to set it up and turn on our little bit here. And then watch it roll.
All right, bit.
Okay, so we got 1 Ozo yard. 2 Ozo yards. That's actually perfectly 2 Ozo yards.
It's quite the field. Ozo football. All right. And so the lesson that we have, go ahead and throw my screen back up. So the lesson that the teacher made for us, aimed at kids for grades K through 2. You can watch the video here. It's measuring students' height, one of those paper outlines that students can make so they can figure out how many Ozo-Loops tall they are. This could be used for anything, which is why we did our football stadium, and we could integrate this into more sports themes or something like that. So that one's fun. And then the next one is about fractions. It says grade 3, and it can be used in other grades as you like in other situations. So this one's just with drawing. Go ahead, show my screen again. Okay, so the goal of this is that you are actually given a lot of different sizes of these squares, and there's a very faint grid back here. And so you can count how many squares are across. So if this is 6 by 6, and you've got 6 times 6 is 32, right? 36.
36.
36, thank you. So the exercise here is, what is an alternative way to create a fraction? So instead of just dividing it in half, what could you do? So I might steal your bit if I may.
Oh, yes, of course.
So just for fun. So what I've done is I figured out that I can fit 18 squares on this side, 18 on this side. So this is just an alternative way that I could break up a figure in half. And then students could also do this for thirds and for quarters or whatever. And they can kind of explore, like, what does it mean to be in half? Kids tend to just know what they've seen, and if it's just straight through the middle, it's not very creative. But this gets them thinking more creatively about space and measurement as well. So there's that one, and then we have our multiplication table practice, which is a great lesson made by Dr. Richard Bourne. He does a lot of amazing lessons for us for all grades. This one is grades 1 through 5, anytime you're ready to do some kind of multiplication practice with your students. So the way that this works, and you'll see me again. Okay. So here's the grid, and you will see that the grid has these lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 9. And this is an OzoBlockly program, so you would just set that up. If your students don't know how, that's fine. And then you can start the program on start. So your bot is going to randomly choose the first number of the multiplication problem. So that was 7. Then we're going to have our bot go around again. So one thing that you can do with this is students can see both of the numbers of the problem. So 7 and 9. So you could say, okay, 7 times 9, what's the answer? And I'll have to say that pretty quick.
63.
Yeah, Tara wins. And then this will actually, and then it's going to blink the answer if you're using bit. If you wanted to change the program, you could get Evo to just say the answer as well. But that's fine. So yeah, this could be like a little race. Kids can kind of sit down and spend some time with this and practice their multiplication. So that's useful. Great. Thanks, Evo. Bye. Okay. Back to the screen. Okay. And I think this is, all right, this is the last one. And this lesson to make a multiplication algorithm, we'll just go straight to the lesson library. And so clicking through, it takes us to the lesson. So in this case, what students will do is actually have to program their bots to express a multiplication problem randomly in terms of area of a shape. So I'll show you the map all the way at the bottom. Okay, so we have a map like this. Wow, zoom out. Out of control. Ah. Okay. So our map is just like this. So we know that Bit and Evo can follow these lines. And just as a note, if you're doing line navigation codes with OzoBlockly, this corner, any kind of sharp angled corner, is not considered a turn. So that's a continuous line. So that may affect how you build your program. So students will be asked to actually build this program from scratch, assuming that they do know some computer science. So for example, if you want to do 12, or if the random problem is 12 or 3 by 4, then it should trace a 3x4 shape on that grid. And then a student handout would include some hints or some steps to kind of give the students the idea of what to build. And if they really need extra hints, you could give them this, which is going to give them some hints to help them not have to spend so much time debugging or figuring out just the right codes to use. And so what I'll show you is also exit this lesson. So that's where you download the lesson. For our lessons that have OzoBlockly programs, you can either download the Ozo Code, the .ozo code file, or click here, which is really nice. Just go straight to OzoBlockly. That's very useful. Also, if you haven't been to OzoBlockly in a while, we do have a new tutorial. If you haven't used OzoBlockly at all before, this would be really great for you to get started using it. So it'll run you through a couple of example things to build and getting those programs to your robot. That would be really good to do. So this is the program that maybe the students would build. So I have like a minimum, maximum for the height of this 2D figure quadrilateral and the width. Start off moving on the line and then have it perform that random height and the random width. Then using math to express the actual answer. So the product would be the height and width multiplied. The tens, so I just want the tens place so I can tell the answer using bit. I could use voice if I'm using Evo. So it would just be product divided by 10 to get the tens place. And then more math to get the ones. And so this is how we could blink an answer. So that is that one. Is there anything we want to say about OzoBlockly while we're here?
I think no.
Okay.
Cool.
And then just also for fun, you can look at the JavaScript, which might be for some of you more interesting to read, quicker to read through, or even just for fun, show your students how this works. So, for example, the random integer block, you can read the JavaScript for it, which is pretty fun. You can use the math code and how you might get a random, like the algorithm for getting a random number. So that could be fun to show. All right. And that is the end of this particular blog post. So now we'll use the rest of our time together to answer some questions. If there are any like kinds of lessons that you want to do and you're wondering, do we have it? You can ask us that.
Any particulars about Ozobot for those of you who are not familiar, go ahead and just type away.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you have recommended grade levels listed on most of these lessons?
Yeah, all the lessons in the lesson library. So at the base of any of the lesson detail pages, it will say like a grade level, whether it's one grade or a span of grades. And when you go into the search, I'll just show you that. As you click through these, it will show you all the possibilities for these grades. Excuse me. Yes, okay.
I do also want to point out that you can find, if you're looking for specific standards, those are also listed on the lessons as well. So once you click into a lesson, there will be an overview of the lesson, just a short little page, and it will go over the grade level, what subjects it covers, any standards that it might meet. And I just want to point out too that we don't align lessons specifically with certain standards just because there are some instances where certain states can't use standards. So one that I always use is Texas can't use Common Core. So if we just aligned that lesson with Common Core, Texas would be left out. So we really don't structure it according or align it to a specific standard, but if it meets any of the criteria, we'll add that onto the lesson and let you know. Let's see. So somebody asked, once you've finished the code, how do you program it? And that's a little bit more in depth of a question than we can answer or show you on our webinar, but we do have a webinar that is using OzoBlockly. So if you go to the webinar and PD page, it should be getting started with OzoBlockly. I would check out that webinar and that will walk you through creating the program and then loading it to your robot. If you also go to the homepage of OzoBlockly.com and you scroll down just a little bit, there is a quick 2-minute tutorial on loading the bot and creating a program. So I would check that out as well. Okay. Will the new lessons that are on the blog be available in the library at some point?
So these are all already available. So anytime you click the title of any of these, you will go straight to that lesson. And that's where you can print it. And if there's, like I said, an Ozo-Blockly thing, look at that. And then here's an example of some of the standards in the lesson. Yep, so they're all online.
Okay, have any new color codes been added recently? There haven't been any new color codes, and there really isn't a plan to add any new color codes or color sequences in the future, just because when we released Evo, that opened up the ability for students to go in and somewhat create their own commands for certain colors. So you can have Ozobot wandering around a path, and when it sees red, the students program it to react in a certain way when it sees certain colors. So they're completely in control of the bot once they're using OzoBlockly with Evo. So that's why we really haven't created any new codes. And then bit is not updatable. So that's another big thing. Even if we did create new color codes, bit wouldn't recognize them. So we just want to make it as easy as possible, keep all those color codes the same, and then you'll be able to explore and expand Ozobot and bit through OzoBlockly. Okay. What's the difference between bit and Evo? We can kind of show you a visual difference of them too.
Yeah, so straight from ozobot.com at the top, there's Meet, Evo, and bit. And you will see how they look a bit different. And as you continue down, after what you can do, there is this handy chart. So we can go through, they're both possible with color codes, the drawn codes. Both can be programmed with OzoBlockly. Some people don't know that bit can be programmed in its little brain. It can. They both can see color. They both follow lines. Evo has more LEDs, and that's not all. It also has a Bluetooth chip, so we can connect to it and give it updates, control it through an app. Proximity sensors, which is really great for interesting programs and projects that you want to make. It has a speaker for sounds. It can tell you numbers and different things. And some other options for playing at home. Yeah.
I like to tell everyone when they're asking about which model is best for their classroom situation, both models, Evo and bit, can be used with grades K to 12 and can be used with all subjects. It just depends on whether you want all the additional features that Evo has. So the extra lights, the sound, the ability to send the programs via Bluetooth. Usually the younger grades work well with the bit just because it doesn't have all the bells and whistles and there's a little less hand-holding with the students. But K through 8 situations where all grade levels are going to be using the robots, they tend to like Evo. So you can always reach out to us and ask us if you're still debating on one or the other, which one would work best for your type of situation. And I do want to point out that after this webinar, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with all the links that we covered in this webinar. And then if you have any questions, you can always respond back to it. The question will go straight to me, and then I can answer all those questions for you. Okay, so we have bits. Are all the lessons designed for both bit and Evo? If not, can you search for just bit lessons?
Okay, so yes, of the of all the lessons that we went through today, they can be used with both, which is great. And then in our lessons and then into search, you can search for both of them. The only real difference, Evo will be used for any lessons that require using the proximity sensors or speakers on purpose. That would be the only real difference. And then the lessons that are only for bit would be lessons that we actually want to do color coding with obstacles or with things on paper, because when Evo follows lines, it will see obstacles. So using Evo for that might be, it might detract from that. So, I mean, if you wanted to have a map with physical objects for Evo and color codes, you would just move them further away. But yeah, it's mostly the same.
Is there a sequence of lessons that teach OzoBlockly on Evo?
That's a great question. We are doing a webinar coming up after this, and if you are watching this later, it is, let's see, go up to the name of the webinar. So we're calling it our new lesson series, the OzoBlockly Basic Training. We'll be talking about how to get started with OzoBlockly for Bit and Evo, and then the different things you can do with it. So we're coming out with a bunch of lessons that help with teaching computer science. Then there's OzoBlockly lessons that kind of teach sort of skills, so you can start making your own projects and programs. And then all of our lessons that already include OzoBlockly, so the track that you might want to take. So that's coming up. So yeah, to answer that question, I would say check out that webinar.
And then if you go to the lesson library, currently at that top, I had pointed it out earlier, there was the 3 sections at the very top of the pictures, and one says the OzoBlockly Basic Training for Color Codes, or Color Codes Basic Training, and then the middle one is OzoBlockly Basic Training. So right. Those are, yeah, right there in the middle. That's the series of lessons. So when you click on it, you'll start with the lesson 1 and then work your way through each of those. And those lessons will help you get started using OzoBlockly. How much longer will the Bit Ozobots be supported? Should we be replacing them with Evos? Bit is not going to be going away. Evos just have added features. So that's the difference between the 2 models. Evo was not replacing Bit in any way. We just wanted to make more advanced robots for the older students that were using or had been coding for a little bit and needed a additional challenge, wanted to add in some of those lights and sounds to make it more fun for them. So we are not forgetting about Bit. It's still here to stay. Okay. Do you ever have issues with Ozobots going rogue? I have one that goes off the marker pass and takes off across the table on its own fairly frequently. I have recalibrated it and I've used the EDU app to update it. It still takes off on its own adventures. Sounds like the tricks mode was enabled for Evo.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of go over the tricks mode?
So if you have an Evo and you bought it individually, not in a classroom kit, then it has a pre-programmed trick on it where it will play with its sensors. Like if you play with its sensors, it will follow you. So if you're finding that it's following your fingers and laughing, that's Evo using that mode. So to turn that off, you connect to the Evo through the app on your device, your phone or your iPad or whatever. And then on the robot, if you click, I think it's more info, and then it's you can turn off classroom mode. Or sorry, you turn on classroom mode, and then that will keep it still and keep it quiet. Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know about the tricks, and some of our earlier classroom kits, the tricks may have been included on those too. So if you find that it starts following your finger or starts running away from you and exactly going rogue, then it's that tricks that's been enabled. Okay. There was the question says you have to download OzoBlockly to use the program. I was hesitant to download it, so I think I did not use Blockly. OzoBlockly is web-based, so you don't have to download anything when it comes to using it. You just go to ozoblockly.com, and then from there, you load the program by holding the bot up to the screen, and the flash sequences will be registered through the sensors at the bottom of the Ozobot. It will store that program, and then once you double click on the power button, it executes the program. So there's no downloading that you have to do with these programs. There's the ability to save the program to a file on your computer, but you don't have to download or any software to be able to use it. What short lessons do you recommend for an after-school STEM academy? We have 1.5 hours per week.
Okay. So in our, let's see if I think this was on search. Okay. So in our search, we do have a delineation between lessons and activities. So activities are what you're looking for. If you search through that, these tend to be short, quick things you can do with the bots. So another lesson from Richard Bourne, where this is specifically for Evo, also practicing add and subtract as well as multiply. So if you're working on math operations with the robot, you could even go into like how it was programmed if kids are so inclined. Some art activities, music. We've got several pages of things. So you can just keep going through. Mission to Mars is a color code game that students can play to make their line drawing and color code drawing better. It's like a great way to practice, but game-based. It's really exciting. We have some holiday-centric activities as that approaches, and some dance. So there's plenty of pages. So I would say go through this, and then if you really want something more advanced or for older kids, you can always just click through what applies to these kids, hit search. So got 35 lessons that apply. Yeah.
Okay. Does Ozobot Evo and OzoBlockly run under Chrome, for example, Chromebook? Yeah, so OzoBlockly is web-based solely right now. So you can pull it up on multiple devices that connect to the internet. So that does include Chromebooks, iPads, your laptops, desktops, tablets in general. You could even technically pull it up on your phone, although you probably won't be using those in the classrooms. And I think we took a poll once, and about 65% of our users are using them with Chromebooks in their classrooms. So don't worry about it not being compatible. It works. And I do want to point out that we soon will be having an OzoBlockly app that will be available as well. So we only had it available as a web-based application because a lot of educators were giving us feedback that it was hard for them to be able to download things to school devices, or they'd have to go through the IT department, and there were just a lot of issues with it. So we made a web-based, but then we also heard that some schools don't have great internet or connection, so they would rather the application. So now we're going to release that for everybody as well. And that should be out soon. There will be a app for Ozobot Evo, which is available now, but we'll add in the OzoBlockly component into that app. And then we will have a separate app for Bit. And you can work with Bit in that OzoBlockly Bit app. And let's see. Is there a community page on the website where educators can share ideas and lessons?
There are two ways. One is if you're posting on social media and you do @Ozobot, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, or hashtag Ozo Squad, we do see that, and then other people can also see that if they search for it. So if you search for any mentions of Ozo Squad or @Ozobot, you can see some submissions that way. And then otherwise, we do have a Facebook group called Ozobot Academy. So if you search for it in Facebook, Ozobot Academy, then you can join that, and that's where a lot of teachers like to ask questions and to get some information.
Okay. So we have, does the Ozobot's battery, or I guess, is the Ozobot's battery memory based? So if I leave the Ozobot charging until the green light lights up, and if I leave it continue to charge, would that damage the battery?
We do recommend that once you've fully charged it, you unplug it, and then if you're going to leave the bots for many, many months, then a full charge or a near empty charge are both bad. You want something in the middle, because on either end it'll deteriorate the battery. So yeah, best thing to do is to fully charge if you're going to use it often, and if not, half charge it.
It's pretty much the same practice as when you're using like a phone
Mm-hmm.
or a computer.
Yeah.
The battery works the same, so definitely keep that in mind. Okay. Someone is asking where to find, oh, let me see, it's not clicking. I have class at the time of webinar on September 18th. Where do I go to find that webinar after the fact?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're on it. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me actually exit out of here. I'm gonna come here back to the Ozobot homepage just so everyone can see us start from the beginning. Right here at the Educators tab again, I'm gonna click on that. And we have the webinars and PD section right here at the top. We'll scroll down, and right here we have all of our upcoming webinars. So this was today's webinar. We have the OzoBlockly coming up, Classroom Kit Unboxing, and then Hack Halloween. And if you scroll down, we have all of our past webinars here. So if you've signed up, aren't able to make it, you can come here about a week afterwards and watch it. Or you can register for the webinar, and we'll automatically send out an email to all registrants. If you weren't able to make it, you'll get a email with the direct link to that webinar. So that is always an option for you as well. Okay, let me go back to the questions. Okay, are the batteries built in or are they replaceable? So they are a tiny built-in lithium-ion battery that's rechargeable but not replaceable. So much like how your phone works, you just plug in the USB. You can plug it into your, like even a phone charger and plug it up, but you can't replace the battery. You'll just have to renew once the batteries start to wear and tear. Okay. I think we've made it through most of the questions. We may have skipped a few. Our little screen is kind of tiny. So if we did, feel free to reply back to the email that's sent out to you automatically after this webinar, and you can ask away any questions that you had or any questions that we missed. And make sure to check out the webinars coming up. There are some really cool ones on lessons, and then just on OzoBlockly and using your Ozobot in general. So we hope that everyone has a great day, and look out for the follow-up email and for this webinar being posted within a week. See everyone at the next webinar.